The sun casts a golden glow over Oak Ridge Estates, a pristine suburban neighborhood where every lawn is trimmed to perfection and every house looks like it was plucked from a real estate magazine. On the surface, it's idyllic, safe. The kind of place where people nod politely at the grocery store and kids ride their bikes without fear. But I know better. Beneath the veneer of polite smiles and HOA meetings lurks something uglier. I've seen it too many times in my career. Entitlement disguised as concern, control masked as community rules, and a certain type of neighbor who wields authority like a weapon. I never thought it would come for my son. I pull into our driveway after a long shift, my unmarked police SUV rolling to a stop. The weight of the day clings to me, but the moment I step out, I hear it laughter. Pure, unfiltered joy. Benji. My 7-year-old son is sitting on the front porch in his wheelchair, shaking with laughter as our golden retriever, Max, wags his tail excitedly beside him. Benji was born with cerebral palsy. His legs don't work the way other kids do, but that has never dimmed his spirit. His energy is contagious, his laughter the kind that makes you forget the world's ugliness until the world forces itself in. "Daddy," he shouts, his curly hair bouncing as he waves at me. "Look." Max learned a new trick. I chuckle, my exhaustion melting away as I walk over. "Yeah? What's he got?" Benji claps his hands, and Max immediately rolls onto his back, paws flailing. The sight sends my son into another fit of giggles, and I ruffle his thick curls. He loves his hair. He tells me it makes him look like a superhero. But then something shifts. A shadow falls over us. "Excuse me, Chief Reynolds." I know that voice before I even turn around. Margaret Holloway, the self-appointed queen of the HOA. Mid-50s, blonde bob cuts so stiff it looks like a helmet, lips pursed as if she's permanently sucking on a lemon. She holds a clipboard like it's a badge, as if being on the HOA board makes her judge, jury, and executioner. I keep my face neutral. "Mrs. Holloway." Her smile is tight. "We need to discuss Benji's appearance." My spine stiffens. His appearance? She gestures vaguely at my son, who is now watching us with wide eyes. His hair specifically. Let's just say it's not in line with neighborhood standards. My jaw tightens. And what standards would those be? She sighs, exasperated. "It's unruly, unkempt. It draws attention. We strive for a certain look here, Chief. We want to maintain a wholesome aesthetic." I feel my pulse tick up. I know what she means. I've seen it before. She means white picket fence, perfect. White. Period. Benji's mother was black. His tight curls are a part of him, a part of us. And Margaret doesn't like it. I force a smile, my voice steady. My son's hair is not up for discussion. She presses her lips together, eyes darting toward Benji, with something that makes my stomach turn. Then she nods, too quick, too polite. "Of course," she says. "Just thought I'd bring it to your attention." She turns and walks away, but I don't miss the way she glances back. I should have known then. This wasn't over. Something feels off. It starts small, subtle. First, the side eyes from neighbors linger a little too long. Conversations abruptly stop when I walk by. Then come the passive-aggressive comments. "So brave of you to let Benji grow his hair out like that. You know, shorter hair is easier to maintain. It must be hard to manage those kinds of curls." They act like they're just making conversation, but I see the pattern. I know what this is. They're testing the waters, seeing how far they can push. Then the letters start arriving. HOA notices. Citations. First, it's something about our front yard decorations being non-compliant with the community's aesthetics. Then it's a warning about Benji's wheelchair ramp, claiming it clashes with the neighborhood design.
Petty.
Trivial, but strategic. Margaret Holloway is probing for weakness. And she's not done. I come home late one evening, my shift running over, and I know instantly that something is wrong. The air feels too still. Max isn't waiting at the door. The porch light flickers like it's struggling to stay alive. And then I hear it.
Benji. Sobbing.
I move fast, my heart slamming against my ribs as I rush inside. He's on the living room floor, hunched over, his small shoulders shaking. His hair, his beautiful, thick curls, are gone.
Chopped.
Uneven. Butchered. Panic surges through me. Benji? What happened? His fingers clench around the fabric of his pajama pants. He won't look up. It was Miss Margaret, he whispers. His voice is small. So small. She said I looked messy. She said she was helping. A wildfire ignites inside me. I crouch down, gently tilting his chin up. His big brown eyes are red and puffy, filled with something I never wanted to see, shame. She just grabbed me, Daddy, he hiccups. She said good boys should look neat and clean. I can't breathe. I should have seen this coming. The looks. The warnings, the HOA letters. But this is assault. This is a woman who believes she has the right to control a black child's hair. His identity.
His body.
A slow, dangerous calm settles over me. Where is she now? I ask, my voice lethal. Benji hesitates. She said she was going to the HOA office. She had to report her good deed. I exhale, slow and steady, standing up. Stay here, I tell him, my jaw locked. I'll handle this. I grab my badge, my gun, my police jacket. Margaret Holloway doesn't know it yet, but she just made the biggest mistake of her life. My boots hit the pavement hard as I march toward the HOA office. Every muscle in my body is wound tight. The air is thick with the kind of fury that only comes when someone you love has been violated, when someone thinks they can touch your child and get away with it. Margaret Holloway has no idea what's coming. The HOA office is located inside the community clubhouse, a pristine white building with large glass doors. I don't bother knocking. I push the doors open, stepping into the air-conditioned space, my police badge clipped to my belt and gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Margaret is at the front desk, chatting with the HOA secretary, a nervous-looking woman in her 40s. The moment Margaret sees me, her lips curl into that saccharine, condescending smile. Chief Reynolds, she says, like she didn't just assault my son. Is there a problem? I step forward, my voice controlled but sharp as a blade. Did you cut my son's hair? Her expression flickers, just for a second. A brief, tiny crack in her polished exterior. Then she tilts her head, eyes wide with false innocence. Oh, that, she says, waving a dismissive hand. It was nothing, really. I was just helping little Benjamin look more presentable. You know how children can be. The sheer audacity of it steals my breath. I lean in, my hands bracing against the desk between us. You put your hands on my child. You had no right. Her smile tightens. Oh, but I did. You see, Chief Reynolds, the HOA has certain standards. And as an upstanding member of this community, I took it upon myself to ensure those standards were met. I feel my fingers curl into fists. She doesn't see what she did as wrong. She doesn't even fear consequences. She truly believes she's untouchable. Margaret sighs, feigning disappointment. I really hoped you'd be more reasonable about this, given your position. But if you're going to be difficult, I'll have to take this up with the board. I narrow my eyes. The board, she straightens, smoothing down her blazer. Yes, we've already had several complaints about certain elements that disrupt the neighborhood's harmony. Certain elements. I know exactly what she means. She's not just talking about Benji's hair. She's talking about us. Margaret Holloway never wanted a black family in Oak Ridge Estates. And now, she's making her move. Let me guess, I say, voice low and dangerous. First, you complain about my son's hair. Then it's my lawn. Then it's my house. Until eventually, you're looking for a way to push us out. She tilts her head, smiling. Oh, Chief, I would never. I pull out my phone and press play. Benji's voice fills the room. She just grabbed me, Daddy. She said good boys should look neat and clean. Margaret's face drains of color. I don't take my eyes off her. That's my son, telling me exactly what you did. The HOA secretary gasps, eyes darting to Margaret in shock. A few other community members in the lobby turn their heads. Margaret swallows hard. But then she doubles down. That recording doesn't prove anything, she scoffs. It's a child's words. And frankly, if you try to make trouble over this, I'll be forced to remind the HOA that we have guidelines about conduct. Perhaps we should review your family's standing in the community. My jaw clenches. She's threatening retaliation. I look around the room. Some people avoid my gaze, unwilling to get involved. But others are watching now, listening. I take out my phone again, this time dialing a number. Margaret frowns. Who are you calling? I hold the phone to my ear. The county prosecutor's office. Her face twists. You can't be serious. Assaulting a minor is a crime, I say evenly. And given the racial implications here, I'd say the DA might be very interested in looking into civil rights violations. The room falls silent. Margaret's breathing is uneven now. Her eyes dart to the HOA secretary, to the people watching. For the first time, she looks afraid. And she should be. Because this is far from over. Margaret recovers quickly. Too quickly. She smooths down her blazer, squares her shoulders, and plasters on that infuriatingly smug smile. The one that says she still thinks she's in control. You're making a terrible mistake, Chief Reynolds, she says, voice thick with condescension. I have every right, as an HOA board member, to enforce community standards. And if you insist on dragging this out, I will be speaking with the HOA legal team. I don't flinch. That's so. She nods. And let's not forget your own position. You're the chief of police, after all. Making false accusations? That's a serious overstep. Imagine how this would look to the mayor, to the press. She leans in slightly, lowering her voice. I hear they don't take kindly to police chiefs abusing their authority. I let her talk. I let her believe, for just a little longer, that she's still winning. Because Margaret Holloway? She has no idea what's coming. The doors to the HOA office swing open. 3 uniformed officers step inside, their presence swallowing the room in a heavy silence. Margaret turns, her confidence flickering. What is this? I barely suppress a smirk. Oh, you wanted legal involvement, Margaret. Well, here it is. Officer Patel, one of my best detectives, steps forward. Mrs. Holloway, we have multiple reports regarding your conduct, including an allegation of assaulting a minor. Margaret laughs. A high, brittle sound. Oh, don't be ridiculous. I was just helping the boy. This is a misunderstanding. Patel holds up a printed document, a still image taken from my home security cameras. A grainy but unmistakable shot of Margaret grabbing Benji's hair. Margaret's breath catches. Her face drains of color. This footage, Patel continues, along with the victim's statement, provides sufficient probable cause for an arrest. The room erupts. Several community members have gathered now, whispering in hushed, shocked voices. The HOA secretary steps back from Margaret, as if realizing, too late, that she backed the wrong side. Margaret stammers. You can't be serious. I was doing my duty as an HOA member. Patel's expression hardens.
No, ma'am.
Your duty does not include laying hands on a child. Margaret whirls on me. This is outrageous. You can't do this. She jabs a finger in my chest. I'll have your badge for this, do you hear me? I'll sue you for harassment. I arch a brow. Good luck with that. Her mouth opens, but I cut her off. You think you run this neighborhood, Margaret? My voice is steady, cold. You think your rules, your standards, give you the right to police my son's appearance? His existence? She flinches. I step closer, my voice dropping so only she can hear. You touched my child. You tried to humiliate him. And you really thought I was going to let that slide? I shake my head slowly. You have no idea who you just messed with. Margaret's breath is ragged. Her perfect little world is collapsing. She looks around desperately, but the faces in the room offer no help. Because now, the truth is out. And Margaret Holloway? She just became the villain of her own story. Margaret's face is a mask of disbelief, shock,
Panic. Rage.
she looks around the HOA office, waiting for someone, anyone, to come to her defense. But all she finds are wide eyes and silence. The very people who once whispered in agreement with her now step back, unwilling to be caught in the blast radius of her downfall. I take a slow step forward, watching the realization sink in. Margaret Holloway is alone. Her jaw tightens. You think you can get rid of me like this? She snaps, her voice edged with desperation. You don't have the authority to arrest me. I have rights. This is harassment. Detective Patel doesn't flinch. Ma'am, we have probable cause. You assaulted a minor. Margaret lets out a sharp, humorless laugh. Assault? You're joking. That's a stretch, and you know it. I was merely helping a neglected child who… Neglected? My voice cuts through hers, sharp as a blade. Her lips press together.
She realizes her mistake.
I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. With one tap, the room fills with a new voice. A witness. She was always complaining about that boy, the voice says. Talking about how his hair was wild, how she wished the HOA had the right to enforce proper grooming standards. I didn't think she'd actually do something about it, but then I saw her leading him to her porch. Margaret freezes. Her own neighbor just sealed her fate. I lift my gaze to hers. That was recorded this morning. From a community member who witnessed everything. They called me before I even got home. The color drains from her face. Now, I'd say that's a pattern of behavior, wouldn't you? I continue. And when you combine that with the security footage, the recorded statement from my son, and the community complaints we've received about your racial targeting, well, I'd say the DA is going to have a field day with this one. The silence in the room is thick.
Heavy.
Margaret is crumbling. She turns abruptly to the HOA secretary. Do something, she hisses. Tell them I was acting in the community's best interest. The secretary blanches. Margaret, I didn't know it was this serious. Margaret whirls around, searching for support. But the HOA board members who once hung onto her every word refuse to meet her gaze. She's not their leader anymore. She's their liability. Her hands tremble. Her once pristine appearance, the polished, perfect HOA queen, now looks haggard, fragile,
Desperate.
Please, she turns back to me, her voice shaking. We can work something out. There's no need to ruin my life over a misunderstanding. I hold her gaze. You put your hands on my child. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. Patel steps forward, reaching for his cuffs. Margaret Holloway, you are under arrest for assaulting a minor. Margaret lunges backward. No, Eno. You can't do this. I built this community. I made it what it is. You think you can just… Patel ignores her, reciting her rights. The moment the cold steel cuffs snap around her wrists, Margaret shrieks. The mighty queen of the HOA in handcuffs. A gasp ripples through the room. Phones come out. Cameras flash. Margaret Holloway is no longer the enforcer of rules. She is now the example of what happens when you cross the line. Margaret Holloway is escorted out of the HOA office in handcuffs. The once pristine woman who ruled this neighborhood with an iron grip now stumbles under the weight of her own downfall. The second she steps outside, she's met with a wall of cameras. Neighbors. residents, even the local news crew that caught wind of the arrest. Phones are held high. Recording, watching, witnessing. Margaret lets out a ragged breath, her face twisting in humiliation. "Stop filming," she shrieks. "I am an upstanding citizen. I deserve respect." Patel keeps a firm grip on her arm. "You're under arrest, ma'am. You don't get to dictate the terms anymore." She whips her head toward me. "You did this," she hisses, her eyes burning with desperation. "You think you won? You think you'll be safe here now? The HOA won't stand for this. You're ruining this neighborhood." I tilt my head, watching her unravel. "No, Margaret," I say, voice calm. "I'm saving it." She gapes at me, as if the thought had never occurred to her. Because to Margaret, she was the neighborhood. And now, she's nothing. The fallout. It happens fast. By the time Margaret is processed at the station, the video of her arrest has already gone viral. Within 24 hours, it's on every local news outlet. HOA president arrested for assaulting Black child. Oak Ridge Estates in uproar after racist incident. Community demands change after discriminatory HOA practices are exposed. The board scrambles to distance themselves. The HOA calls an emergency meeting, and within days, Margaret is officially removed as president. But the real blow? The lawsuit. My lawyer doesn't waste time. We file civil charges for emotional distress and racial discrimination. Several other families come forward with their own stories of Margaret's harassment. By the time we're done, Margaret Holloway is financially ruined. Her once perfect life, shattered. And I take back my peace. The neighborhood's reckoning. It's subtle, at first. A shift in how people look at me. At my son. The same neighbors who used to avert their eyes when Margaret made her little comments now stop to talk. Some apologize. Some offer support. And some still refuse to change. But that's fine. Because Oak Ridge Estates isn't theirs anymore. It's ours. The final moment. I sit on our porch, watching Benji play in the yard. His curls bounce under the sun, untamed and beautiful. He catches me watching and grins. "She's gone, huh?" I nod. "She's gone." He laughs, spinning in the grass, free. I lean back in my chair, feeling something I haven't felt in a long time. Relief. Justice was served. And we are finally home.